Hello, and I'm going to give my global weather presentation on the Big Dry, which is the drought in New Zealand from 2012 to 2014. And I'm also going to discuss how it affected the dairy industry both locally in New Zealand and globally. The dairy industry of New Zealand provides 35% of the world trade of dairy products. New Zealand dairy products are annual exports of around $11 billion for the country, and New Zealand dairy products feed approximately 100 million people worldwide. So you can see with these statistics that the dairy industry of New Zealand is very vital to the country's economy. Milk matters to people everywhere, and dairy products are among the most important of all traded food products. And here you see milk on the shelf in New Zealand, very similar to what we have here, just with a little bit of a difference in the container and packaging. And here are cows grazing, which is a familiar sight in New Zealand, and these cows are at the foot of Mount Taranaki. The dairy industry, like all farming, is dependent upon the weather. The Big Dry caused a severe drought that devastated the dairy industry in New Zealand and drove up dairy prices around the world. New Zealand has a strong impact on global dairy supply. With New Zealand providing 35% of dairy products in the world, it actually has an impact on the prices that we all pay or receive. Whenever you go to the store, you may end up paying more for your gallon of milk if New Zealand is experiencing drought or any other adverse weather conditions, because it does affect the price of dairy products globally. Here we see a sight that was common during the drought, and these were fire ban signs. And here in the Midwest, we don't experience things like this. We may have like a burn ban, for a few weeks or something in the fall when it's dry, but here in New Zealand, this was March of 2013. In the North Island, the drought costed farmers millions of dollars every day, and it did take a toll on the country's economy. And here you can see in the photo that it was extreme fire conditions. Here's a photo of a farmer walking through the field of dead grass, and you can see why conditions for fire were so scary. This is Clinton Oliver from Manawatu, Foxton, New Zealand. He's a third-generation dairyman who milks brown Swiss and red and white Holstein cows on 212 acres, and he also has all of his young animals there as well. I asked him a little bit about the Big Dry and how it affected his dairy farm, and his farm sits on sandy loam soil 2 miles from the beach, and this is what he told me about the drought in his farm.
Now I better get back to answering your question, Sam. How did it affect us? Well, we've really had 3 droughts in a row, but probably the middle one, I don't know, it's hard to say. But yeah, the 2012 was pretty bad, but the middle one, 13, was, whether it was still the effects of the 12, I'm not sure. But yeah, we just basically had to dry our cows off earlier, and then the supplement we had, we used it all up and had to buy in more to keep them fed. So that sort of didn't help the financial side of it. But yeah, I don't know how else you would say it affected us, other than you can't keep milking and you can't, you go through all your supplement, which causes you to buy more which doesn't help the bottom line. Just as well we had a good payout that year. But then, another 3rd drought last year, that sort of really set the ball rolling for what we are now. But we just had to buy so much in last year, and then the payout going down, and then it's down again this year. I think it's worked out on budget over last season and this season. We're going to clock up 400 grand debt. So yeah, just hope next season's better, or we're going to spend a lot of years trying to pay it all off again.
that's a typical farmer's perspective, and always hope for a better year next year. So on his farm, which he is a smaller farmer in New Zealand, but the cost of the drought for him put his business $400,000 in debt, and that will take a considerable amount of time to pay back off. This is a photo of New Zealand whenever they're getting the traditional rainfall, and you can see it's a very lush area, a lot of grass, a lot of pasture to make a lot of milk. Production during the big dry. You can see like the trend on New Zealand's milk production had been a steady increase, and then during the drought they did have a decrease, and then rainfall came back and production increased again, and then now they are experiencing dry conditions again this year. This map shows the location of dairy farms in New Zealand. They're mainly located on the western side of the North Island, and this helps them take advantage of what is termed generally reliable rainfall. New Zealand enjoys very inexpensive cost of production for milk because of the ability to harness solar energy. The sun grows the grass, and grass is the primary feed for dairy cattle in New Zealand. And this is also why a drought is devastating to the industry. If you can't grow grass, you're not going to be producing milk in New Zealand. Or at least you're not going to be able to do it in a profitable manner. This is a split comparison photo that I got from NASA's website. The left was taken in April 2013 and the right was in April 2009. You can easily see how the drought damaged the pasture lands. The deep green areas were the forest. But those were affected also, but obviously not as much as the grass. The dairy impact on the gross domestic product for New Zealand is huge. China and Australia are the two largest importers of New Zealand dairy products, and forest and dairy industries are the two main products that are exported by New Zealand. And this is a photo of one of the milk dry plants in New Zealand, and dairy is just a huge industry in the country. The economy is heavily based on dairy and milk production. And that's another large drying plant. Past and future expectations. Well, it's very hard to predict what the milk price is going to be and how much milk there's going to be available in the future, because obviously it's dependent on the weather, and we know we can predict the weather to a small extent, but over time it's hard to know when there is going to be a drought. And you can see here in 2012 and 2013 how production was down. And there is some nice thick New Zealand grass with good subsoil moisture, grazing a lot of cows on it. The causes of the big dry. There's many different opinions of this, I suppose, but what I researched and found was the change in the atmosphere due to increasing greenhouse and ozone depleting gases. This is a big factor in New Zealand because of the location. Between 1990 and 2013, there's a 34% increase in radiative forcing. And the combination of all these things has increased the average annual temperature in New Zealand by 0.7 of a Celsius degree. The role of ozone depletion in drying the oceanic region. Ozone depletion affects SAM, which is the southern annular mode, and this is the movement of the westerly winds that circle New Zealand and Antarctica. And this controls, how many storms there's going to be and how much rainfall there's going to be. The effect of SAM. There's both positive and negative phases of SAM. In the positive phase, SAM causes a belt of strong westerly winds to contract toward Antarctica. Weaker westerly winds over the South Island and high pressures combine, and then there's less cold fronts crossing New Zealand. And this results in a decreased amount of rainfall and it also has resulted in record-breaking expansion of the Antarctic sea ice. In the negative phase, SAM causes the westerly wind belt to expand north and towards New Zealand, and there's the passage of more westerly cold fronts, and that results in a lot more rainfall. And this you can see through the research of the last 56 years. They're showing that the amount of the positive effects of SAM is strongly associated with stratospheric ozone depletion. Changes in SAM and the New Zealand climate. There's less rain and there's more evaporation. The changes in SAM are the increased incidences of high pressure over the North Island and a lot less rainfall, and there has been more drought. The change in the climate of New Zealand also involves evapotranspiration, or actually that is when plants breathe out the subsoil moisture. When there's dry air, plants will breathe out air from the ground, and this problem is compounded by the increased temperatures, because the hotter it is, the more moisture plants are going to breathe out. Less rainfall and more evaporation are resulting in a climate change in New Zealand, and that's much less friendly for an agriculturally based country, and it's making it more prone to drought. And you can see in this graph the soil moisture deficit in New Zealand, and the 3-year average showing that they're losing a lot of their subsoil moisture. To get the water turned back on, the Montreal Protocol is now protecting the stratospheric ozone layer. The Antarctic ozone hole peaked in 2006, and you think about like the Montreal Protocol and the agreement to protect our ozone layer. Is it too little, too late for New Zealand? It's possibly showing that the impacts can be slowed down, and maybe even like in coming years it can be reversed. But one thing is for sure, it has already impacted the climate of New Zealand. To ensure the future of our healthy atmosphere and good rainfall and what we need to have for a healthy dairy industry in New Zealand, currently there's no international agreement in place to curb the growth of greenhouse gases in our atmospheres. But New Zealand must continue to be a leader in the international environmental policy and seek to form agreements to rapidly halt and reverse the growth of greenhouse gases. The dairy industry of New Zealand does provide 35% of the world traded dairy products, which equals $11 billion in export for their country, and it feeds 100 million people worldwide. The dairy industry is a vital driver of New Zealand's economy, and the weather and climate trends are affecting the country's dairy industry, which is vital to its wealth. Thank you.